All right, and that is the welcome back music, guys. It's 2018. This is Jason Stapleton broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines here in sunny California. It's actually really nice. It's kind of pleasant. Although I haven't had my tax bill yet, and of course I haven't had to deal with a lot of the problems that a lot of people out here deal with. But right now, all it is sunny weather, beautiful beaches, and me in the brand new studio here at Westwood, where I am. I'm going to try and get this thing done and provide you guys with some decent content. Now, the first thing that I want to do is just tell you guys how much I appreciate you being here and listening and being part of what I'm doing. And I am, we're going to be adding, people have been asking me about video and all this other stuff. We're going to be adding video to the mix, and what else is going to be happening, and are you going to be having meetups and all of that stuff? And the first thing is, yes, I want to add video. The problem is right now, this is something that we have to kind of work on. I got to figure out how we're going to do that. Right now, I'm in like a temporary studio, and really what needs to happen is I'm going to have to convince these guys that I am worth a full studio on my own. And in order to do that, that means we need to grow this show, and we need to get that show up to where last year, you guys remember last year, I'm going to riff here for the first, because we don't have any advertising today. This is just, we're Martin Luther King Day. The office is closed. They actually had crew here to help me because they technically the studio is closed. And so I'm just going to talk with you guys for a little bit. It's been so long since we've been together, and just tell you a little bit about what's going on. So Martin Luther King Day, and as I said, nobody's here in the office, but what I wanted to do was we wanted to add, last year, we wanted to get to around 100,000 listeners. We were sitting somewhere around 30,000 a day, and I wanted to get to 100,000 listeners. So that was an achievable goal. It was an aggressive goal, but it was an achievable goal because the previous year we had gone from like 6,000 people to like 25,000 people, and I'm looking at it going, well, yeah, let's even be more aggressive. We did better than we ever thought we would do, so let's do that again. Let's just set a goal that we think is unattainable, and let's see if we can get there. And all was well and good until I got a call from History Channel, asked me to do a television show. And I, of course, saw that as an opportunity to grow my audience, because where else am I going to get 3 million eyeballs to find out my name? And so I said yes, and we ended up spending what I thought was going to be, I thought it was going to be like maybe a month worth of shooting. It ended up being like 4 or 5 months. I can't even remember what it was, like half a year. We went to Serbia, we went to, Colorado, we went to New York a couple of times, Washington, D.C. a couple of times. I still don't even think I can tell you what the show is about. But I know that the show is supposed to air in April. But when that happened, it meant that the show had to go on to the back burner, and it was a big, gigantic mess, and we didn't hit our goal. The needle didn't really move last year. I mean, all of you guys stayed. You guys supported the show, and that was wonderful, but we didn't get to where we wanted to go. Now we're into 2018. Now we're in an election year, and it's an important one that people don't want to admit, because nobody wants to talk about the bye year as being an important year. But guys, this is the year when a lot of big changes happen. We could see a shift. I think it's tough, but we could see a shift in the Senate where Democrats end up taking over, and that's going to change the dynamic in Washington. Now, if you are new to this show, please understand, I carry no badges. What that means is I have no party affiliation. If you want to know my personal beliefs about life and liberty and economics, I am relatively libertarian. Well, no, I am a libertarian in the sense that I believe in 5 basic principles, and this is kind of how I do it. If you're going to put a label on me, libertarian is the closest one to what I am. 5 basic principles of liberty: limited government, individualism, peace, tolerance, and free markets. And a lot of times I'm going to be I'm going to be the keynote speaker at the 2008 San Diego Libertarian Party Convention on the 27th of this month. So if any of you want to come out, we're going to do a meet. I'm going to figure out some way to do a meetup with you guys. So we're going to have a big deal, and you guys can come in. You can hear me give the keynote speech. But I've been mulling over kind of what I want to talk about and what I want to preach on, for lack of a better term. And truthfully, where I'm at right now is I think that we are in a culture that requires labels. And we've got to figure out how, as libertarians, we overcome that, or how we create a sense of who we are without an association necessarily with party affiliation. Because we have to be about something. People have to be able to put you into a box. This is just human nature. We all want leaders to follow, and we all want to understand in a word or in a phrase what that person believes. And the difficulty is that libertarianism can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And unfortunately, as we saw in the last election cycle with Gary Johnson, is that they like to try and, well, what are you, Republican? Are you conservative, or are you progressive? Well, the truth is I'm both. The truth is I believe in both. The peace and tolerance, free markets, this idea that nobody should be telling you what to do. I mean, we've got a story in here. It's crazy. About a dozen people being arrested for feeding the homeless in El Cajon here in California. And I'm reading that and I'm like, how does that happen? Well, the government and all of its goodness and all of its rightness and all of its attempt to protect you from yourself made food sharing illegal to try and prevent hepatitis A. We'll get into it as the show unfolds. And I'm thinking to myself, why do you need to worry about that? Why is that something that your city council should be wasting your time doing? How about a little personal responsibility? How about the guy who decides he wants to go out and share food with his neighbor takes responsibility for it? How about, if we're being honest, how about if you're going to go out and feed the homeless, you take it upon yourself to properly guard yourself against such diseases? These are the types of things that I think about as a libertarian. I believe in charity. I don't think the government should be in the business of providing charity because they're not doing it with their money, and so they don't respect what it takes to earn it and therefore respect what it takes to give it away. They're very, very good. People in government are very, very generous with your money. This is what you need to understand. The government is extremely generous with other people's money, and there are a lot of people in this world who are extremely generous with your money. There is no amount of money that they will not give away on your behalf. There is no amount of money that they don't believe that you owe or that we as a society have a responsibility to provide. And unfortunately, although you will find no greater proponent of charity than myself, I don't believe that government should be involved in the charity, because when government does it, it's not charity, it's just simply theft. When I give of my own free will, that's charity. When the government takes from me against my will and then redistributes it how it sees fit, that's theft. Now, on the other hand, there are certain things that government has a responsibility for. We'll talk a little bit about that today. I'm not that libertarian who believes that government has absolutely no role. There should be no government. We should all be living in anarchy. That's not me either. You see, I think from a human standpoint, human nature requires that we collect ourselves in groups. I think we're a communal people as human beings. And so we are naturally going to assign ourselves into groups. And inside of those groups, there's going to have to be some sort of standard by which we conduct ourselves, some means to seek a redress of grievances when we've been wronged, and some way to protect ourselves against the potential violence and extremism of others. And so while I think that at the end, whether government was truly necessary or not, it's going to happen. And so if we have it, then what are the proper roles and responsibility of government? Well, government exists to protect life, liberty, and property if it has a role at all. That's what government is there to do. Protect you. Make sure that you have the ability to pursue your own self-interest without artificial barriers. Unfortunately, what happens many times is that government ends up being the group that puts up the artificial barriers, and that's where we have a problem. And so when I look at something like this is an opportunity out in California for people to be charitable, for people to give of their time and their money to go out and help others. And what you see is government stepping in order to, quote, help you and protect you and prevent you from doing what it is that you naturally would want to do, which is to be charitable. It's almost as though they have a monopoly and they want to keep it. No. The only people who can give to the poor are us. How dare you go out in public and share? This isn't something that, of course, we believe in as libertarians. But oftentimes we get a really bad rap because they call us uncharitable because we are against a lot of the government charity, quote unquote, that gets doled out. And one of the other things that I think the government has a great responsibility for is, in fact, security of our border. I think that if you need to have some sort of, if you're going to have a nation state, especially if you're going to have a lot of welfare and a lot of handouts to people, you're going to have some way to determine who's coming in and out, especially from a security standpoint, if nothing less. And so that's one of the things that we're going to kind of discuss today with DACA and the president's decision is that we this is something that has to be worked out. And frankly, I just think it's ridiculous. The entire argument about, because here's what we've really got. Let me kind of run through it for you. The president has decided, in his infinite wisdom, and we'll get to the comments that he made here in a little bit as the show unfolds. But essentially, what the president wants to do is he has decided that he's going to repeal the DACA status. Now, what does that mean? Well, you see, they tried to pass something called the Dreamers Act, the Dream Act, which would have protected immigrants who came here, illegal immigrants who came here as children. So you have parents who came here illegally and they brought their children here. The children are here by no fault of their own, and many of them have lived here their entire lives. And so you say to yourself, what happens when that guy gets picked up or he tries to go apply for a job and he can't get a job because, of course, he's an illegal immigrant. And now he's deported and he doesn't even speak Spanish. Some of them don't. Some of them don't even speak Spanish. And now they're going shipped back to a country where they know no one, where they don't speak the language, and they're trying to figure out how to survive. And Democrats looked at this and said, well, that ain't right, and rightfully so. It's not right. There should be something done about this, and so they tried to get the DREAM Act passed. And that got held up in Congress, and so when Obama was in power in 2015, notice how I say when he's in power, when Obama was in power, in 2012, he essentially created this DACA program. And DACA was designed to give temporary status or temporary protection to anyone who was 16 or younger when they came into the country and came here before 2007. Now, that's going to be important here in just a little bit when we talk about some of the misconceptions about DACA and about what's happening. So now Obama is out of power. Trump is in power now. And Trump looks at it and he says, well, I don't want these dreamers here, these DACA folks here. So we're going to repeal this. Now, why would he do that? Now, some people would say it's because he hates Mexicans. It's because he's a racist. Maybe he is. I don't have any idea. But to me, he's far too smart to come out just strictly from a racist perspective and want to eliminate DACA. Something else is going on here. So you say to yourself, well, what could it possibly be? And clearly it's political, because neither Republicans nor Democrats want to send young kids in college or younger back over. Well, some of them are older than that. Some of them are in their 20s, but nobody wants to send these people back over the border. Nobody wants that label. Maybe some hillbilly from Alabama. And now I'm going to get emails from people from Alabama saying, well, we don't want that either. But you get what I'm saying. Maybe some hillbilly hick out there in the woods somewhere decides that, we're better off without these people and how dare they. But the reality is nobody really wants these folks to go back. That's not who we want to deport. We don't want, honestly, do we really want hardworking, well-educated people deported from this country and sent back to their homeland, a homeland that they've never known? Absolutely not. So the question becomes, why would the president do it? And it's political. It's because he wants some other things. He wants a wall. He wants a wall that he promised us, by the way, was going to be provided by the Mexicans, by the Hispanics down below the border. He said multiple times that he was going to build a wall, that Mexico was going to pay for it. I guarantee it. You watch, they're going to pay for it. And of course, they're not. They're not, because the president has no power to force anybody to pay for a wall. He can't do it. And he doesn't have the power to unilaterally make decisions that affect trade. And so what he's stuck with is trying to work with Congress to figure out how he's going to get the funding for the wall. I don't know what it is, $20 billion or something like that for this wall. And since the wall is having so much trouble being built and he's not getting the funding for it and nobody really wants to talk about it, the question is, well, what does he do? How does he get around this? Well, he's got this DACA thing in his back pocket. Because the DACA thing, for all of the discussion, is really, if you want to talk about it, is really an executive order. It's just one president coming out and saying, I'm going to do this, and nobody standing up and saying, well, you're not off. You don't get to do that. You don't get to provide temporary status to people in violation of the law. Nobody does anything. So the president says, well, I'll just repeal that, and then those people will have to be forced to go home, and Democrats will rise up in anger and frustration, and they will come to the table, and I'll tell them, well, I'm willing to fix this if you give me what I want. And, of course, what he wants, in addition to some other things, is a wall being built. He also doesn't like the fact that an immigrant comes to this country legally, and then he gets to bring his whole family over under this chain migration thing that they're talking about. But let me read to you a little bit from the article. This is from CNN. Actually, some decent reporting from the CNN website. You won't find that on the television show, but at least you get some of it on the website. It says a source said Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin was explaining to the president a proposal to end the visa lottery in exchange for temporary protection status from countries such as El Salvador. So this is the meeting that they had about how are we going to resolve this whole DACA situation? How are we going to fix the problems that exist and the problems that essentially the president has created? And Durbin was going through his list of countries under temporary protection status that would be, flipping the page, covered when he gets to Haiti. And Trump asks why who wants more people from Haiti and African countries. Now this is first of all, this is all hearsay. It's all coming secondhand. We don't have a recording of it. I don't even think Dick Durbin confirmed it, but I don't think he was the one who actually came out and dropped this to the media. I think this got dropped via someone in Durbin's office. So somebody who was sitting in the room. But the president comes out, and now he's negotiating, and they want to end the visa lottery in exchange for temporary protection status. So they're negotiating. And he says, who wants more Haitians? Why do we need more Haitians? Take them out. The president added that the U.S. should get more people from countries like Norway. Now, is the president a racist? This is naturally the opinion of many. I don't know. Listen, I hate the idea of calling people racist just because I think it's a cop-out. Yeah, maybe he is a racist. Nobody knows the heart of him. When he puts on a Ku Klux Klan outfit or a badge and he starts dragging around a rope and he openly says, I'm a racist, like Tila Tequila or whatever her name is, then I'll say, oh yeah, they're a racist. He's racist. He says it. He's open about it. Doesn't care. Now he's a racist. But short of that, I need to do something else. I need some other method by which to judge a man's actions. And here, it's not just because he doesn't want people from Sudan and he does want people from Norway doesn't necessarily mean that he's a racist. Doesn't mean he's not, but doesn't necessarily mean he's a racist. So I can't go as far as a lot of you want me to go in calling this guy a racist. What I can do is I can tell you that the optics on this are terrible. Why on earth would you make this kind of statement? Now, he's making it behind closed doors. He was talking to a group of senators, and more than likely the man is he's just verbal diarrhea because we've seen it before. We know who the guy is. And what I don't understand is Bill Burr does this whole bit about Duck Dynasty and the old guy on Duck Dynasty and the stuff that he said about gays. And Bill Burr's whole comment was, he's a stand-up comic, by the way. He says, what did you expect? The guy's 70 years old, 75 years old. He lives down in Alabama in the middle of the swamp. You put a microphone in front of his face, of course he's going to say something stupid. Right? Like, well, what did you expect? What did you think he thought? And I look at the president. The president's 70 years old. I mean, the amount of life he's lived, the change in our country and what what is socially acceptable has morphed. And this man lives largely in his own bubble, a bubble of his own exceptionalism, a bubble of his own ego. You don't think that guy's harboring just a little bit of maybe some racial problems? Yeah, it's most definitely possible. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. Doesn't necessarily mean he wants to string anybody up. It just means that, he's 70 years old. He's got a different perspective on the world than a lot of people who are 25. And the White House spokesperson, Raj Shah, did not deny Trump's a-hole comments or dirt-hole comments. I'm not going to say it, guys. It's a family show. I'm trying to be a family show here. I know it's like childish to not say it, but little kids listen to this show. So we'll try and clean it up a little bit. So his remarks about dirt-hole countries but instead emphasized in his statement that the president, quote, is fighting for a permanent solution that makes our country stronger by welcoming those who can contribute to our society, grow our economy, and assimilate into our nation. Now, somebody needs to explain to the president, needs to explain to the White House that this country, it sounds stupid, but the country was a nation of immigrants, that people came here with nothing, that they grew with nothing, that this nation was built from nothing by people who are willing to risk everything to start a life here. That's really what's happening with all of the migration from Mexico. We get a lot of migration from other places, but Mexico tends to be where our low wage workers come from, and it tends to be where a lot of our illegal immigration and violence comes from across the border. Now, not all of that, not even part of that, part of it is, but all of that is not due to illegal immigration. Much of it is due to the drug trade, which is a whole nother argument that we can discuss on a different show. But the real problem with the border has nothing to do with DACA, has nothing to do with the stuff that people are arguing about right now. It has to do with two things. Number one, border security, which does not mean a wall, by the way. A wall is really going to do nothing. You're going to put this wall up, people will find a way to get in and out. You need to do a couple of things. You need to increase your border security so you know who's coming in and out. And then more importantly, this is the critical piece. You have to find a way to get people here who want to work or have jobs, to get them here as quickly and as easily as possible. Why should it take you 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to get a visa to come here and work when you know that there is a guy out there who wants to hire you? Let's say he's picking cabbage or whatever it is, whatever low-wage job it is that you have to do, picking oranges. Whatever low-wage job it is, if there's a job waiting for you, if there's a guy willing to hire you, why does it take so long to bring that guy over? Why does it take so long to get him here? And the answer is government bureaucracy, inefficiently, poorly run and managed business. And that needs to be fixed. If you fixed that and you made it easy for people to come here legally, the immigration process, or the illegal immigration problem would solve itself overnight. Then all you would have to worry about is all the really bad characters who are flooding across the border to do us harm. And wouldn't that be nice? So how do we go about doing that? How do you go about solving this problem? Well, the first thing you have to do is get rid of all of the bureaucracy, all of the paperwork, all of the problems that exist with people trying to come here. And one of the problems that I have with this, one of the issues I take with this idea of people coming here and taking jobs is this idea that Sessions talks about. He says you're coming here and you're taking Americans' jobs. So let me read through some of this. I'm really just riffing here, but I've got all these notes here in front of me. I should probably read them. This came from Vox.com. 9 facts that explain DACA immigration program. Well, I'm gonna wait on that. Let's do the 5 myths of DACA. This is from Cato. Cato did a nice little article here on the 5 myths about DACA. So if you take a look at this, it says myth 1: DACA incentivizes an increase in illegal immigration. It says DACA applies only to immigrants who have entered before their 16th birthday and who have lived in the country continuously since June 15th of 2017. He says no one entering after that can apply. So this DACA status doesn't really apply to anybody but those people. And I would probably go a step further. I'm going to give you my solution to this immigration problem here in a minute, but let me finish these 5 myths. It says DACA has taken jobs from Americans. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said that DACA denies jobs to hundreds of thousands of Americans by allowing those same jobs to illegal aliens. Even if that was true, and it's not, I'll explain it in a minute, but even if that was true, what are you really saying? You don't like competition. You don't like someone else being willing to do your job for less, because that's really what we're talking about. Either the job doesn't have a worker to fill it, and therefore an illegal immigrant or an immigrant is going to come and fill that job, or that job's being filled by someone, and you have someone else who's willing to work for less money. Now, look, if you don't like competition, what does that say about you? What does it say about your skill set and about your willingness to improve your own condition? I'm sorry, folks, but I love competition. I love the fact that prices fall. I love the fact that every day I got to be on my A game, because if I'm not, somebody else is coming on my heels. There are other guys out there with other political podcasts that you could be listening to right now. There are plenty of other places you could be spending your time other than here. You are here because every day I bust my butt to make sure this show is good. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but the important thing is competition is important. It keeps us sharp, it keeps us thinking, it keeps us motivated, it keeps us pushing and driving. But the fact is, a lot of people don't like the competition because they can't compete. And so, yeah, if you have lived your entire life in America and the best job that you can get is minimum wage picking cabbage, then yeah, somebody coming over the border might be a problem for you. Guess what? Tough. That's one of the things we talk about in the 5 principles is free markets. You should be able to go and work for whatever price you can get. There's this beautiful thing called competition and a beautiful thing called cooperation in this country, where an employer is constantly trying to get the highest quality labor for the cheapest price, and labor is constantly trying to do the least amount of work for the most amount of money. That's really what we're doing. Everybody does that. Everybody wants to make more money for doing less work. Would anybody here say no to that? Anybody here upset about making more money for doing less work? No. If we could swing that, we'd do it every single day. It's self-interest. By that same token, you've got employers who are constantly trying to get more work out of people for less money. Now, when it comes to your employment and it comes to what you're paid, whatever number the two of you agree on is what you're worth. You're not worth any more, you're not worth any less. You're worth that amount of money, because that's what you were willing to work for, and that's what your employer was willing to pay you. But the very notion that there is a limited amount of jobs that are to be had in America is foolish too. There's an economic name for it. It's called the lump of labor fallacy. It's a suggestion that there's only X number of jobs, and therefore, if an illegal comes here to this country and he takes a job, he's taking it from an American, which is ludicrous. From 1970 to 2017, the U.S. labor force doubled. It doubled from 1970 to 2017. Do we have 50% unemployment? No, we don't. You want to know why? Because new industry sparked. New growth happened. There is no such thing as, the pie is not finite. This is a really, really difficult thing for people to understand. There's no exact amount of money in this world. When you make $1, you didn't take $1 out of somebody. You didn't prevent somebody else from making $1. The fact that a guy has $1 billion has no bearing on how much money you can make in this world. Doesn't have any bearing on it. The fact that 1% control X amount of the population, they control X amount of the money, doesn't mean you can't chip away at that. Doesn't mean you can't grow your pile. And just because somebody else takes a job doesn't mean there's no job for you. It's absolutely ludicrous. It is an economic fallacy to believe differently. Now, myth number 3, DACA would benefit taxpayers. Sessions also argued that ending DACA protects taxpayers, but according to the National Academy of Sciences, first-generation immigrants would enter the United States as children, who enter the United States as children, pay on average more in taxes over their lifetime than they receive in benefits, regardless of their education level. It says DACA recipients end up contributing more than the average because they are not eligible for any federal means-tested welfare, cash assistance, food stamps, Medicaid, health care, tax credits, or anything else. And what I would say to Sessions, and what I would say to all of you, even if this was a concern, even if it was legitimate, like people are coming here and they're working and they're using the system and they're milking the system and they're actually a drain on our society, that's not an immigration problem. It's not. That's a government handouts and redistribution problem. It's a subsidies problem. If those people are coming here and they're utilizing subsidies and they are a drain on the economy, if they are sucking more out than they are producing in economic growth, that is not an issue of immigration. That is an issue of government having too many handouts. God, I'm sorry, my phone keeps buzzing. Why do you keep buzzing me? Stop. People calling me. I'm already confused enough. You know, this room has I'm watching the stream go. It's literally like a big closet. I got 4 computer monitors here and I'm watching things and I got a whole board here that I'm supposed to go through. It's crazy. Anyway, sorry, that was a complete tangent because I know I'm going to sound distracted today. I wanted to have like the most killer episode that you've ever heard, but I knew being in here for the first time, I was going to be distracted. I was going to have trouble formulating my thoughts and keeping everything flowing. So please just come back tomorrow. This is going to get so much better over the next week as soon as I can unscrew myself. All right. So number 4, DACA repeal protects communities from criminals. Jeff Sessions is hitting them on all fronts, man. He's like, oh, it's going to benefit the taxpayer. Oh, it's going to stop taking jobs from Americans, from hardworking Americans, and it's going to save lives. These are kids. They're people who grew up here by no fault of their own because their parents came here looking for a better life. And now they're trying to go to college. Some of them are going to become doctors and nurses. Some of them are going to become ditch diggers. And you know what? The world needs both. We got to have both of them. So no matter where you end up, as long as you're employed, as long as you're making it happen, who cares? Now, the last one here, myth 5, I actually don't agree with the Cato Institute. It says, DACA repeal is just about politics. It says, no, it's not just about politics. He said, if Trump wanted to end DACA for political reasons, he could have done it on his first day in office. Yeah, he could have. But then what's his political benefit there? No. Better he hold it over everyone's head. Better he pull the rug out from Democrats, give them something to squirm about, to squeal about, so that he can try and get something out of the deal. That's why he's doing it. It's all political. Once you understand that nobody's looking out for you, that nobody in government really cares about you, Republican, Democrat, or otherwise, once you realize these things, life becomes so much easier and so much clearer. When you recognize the president really doesn't care about you, that he's got an agenda that he's trying to get done, and none of it has to do with caring about you, your whole mind will open up. You will see the world in an entirely different light, and you will see the government in an entirely different light. I talk with so many people on a daily basis who are angry about what this person said over that person, and we get this constant fight between Republicans and Democrats where it's he said, she said, and where the Republicans screw up, and then all the Republicans get together like, oh, but look at what the Democrats do. And the Democrats do the same thing back to the Republicans. Like I said, stop, shed your label. In America, politics is a team sport, and you feel like you have to join a team. Don't join a team. Stand on principle. Recognize that neither one of these guys are looking out for you. Neither political party has your best interest at heart. They have their own best interest at heart. They are no different than you and me. They're no different than the employer or the employee. Everybody is looking out for their own self-interest. And what does a politician want? More than anything, he wants to get reelected so he doesn't have to get a real job. And so he will do and say anything, with rare exception. There are exceptions to the rule, as there are with everything. But with rare exception, this is the way politicians operate. Now, over the course of this year, we've got an election coming up, and we're going to have a lot of people in the studio who have political ambition, who are aspiring for political office, and I'm hoping that we're going to find a handful of them that really, truly fit the mold of someone who's going to Washington to do the right thing. They're out there. It's just very few of them ever get elected. And some of them get elected, they go to Washington, they see how broken it is, they understand it takes so much work. You have to go through hell to get elected in this country. It's one of the dirtiest blood sports around. And once you finally get elected, and you've had your entire life scrutinized, and you've had every skeleton in your closet dug up, and you finally get to a point where you're now in office, you think to yourself, well, I want to keep this. I don't want to have to go through this all again. I didn't go through all this for nothing, just for 2 years or just for 6 years. I want to be in here for the long term. And you start making concessions. You start making sacrifices. First, the little things. It's like a crack in the dam. You just, I'll give a little bit on this. Yeah, that's really not principally sound. It wasn't really what I talked about. But you know what? I'm going to try and do some good. So I'm going to do a little bit of bad here to do some good later. And then before you know it, they're just part of the system. There are exceptions to this rule. There are Thomas Masseys. There are Rand Pauls. There are men who really do stand on principle, who believe in liberty as a primary political value. But unfortunately, more than anything, you get guys who carry water for whatever their political party is. I will give you an example of this. So after Trump made his comments about those from African nations, Dick Durbin came out and was very, very angry. He said he couldn't believe that the president would say this. The press secretary came out and didn't deny it. Nobody's really denying it. They're just simply saying, oh, no, I didn't hear that. Oh, I didn't really hear that say. The only guy who's really coming out and denying is this guy named Senator Perdue. He was on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos this weekend, and he said the following. Listen to this.
Coming out of that meeting, we had a gross misrepresentation of what happened in that meeting.
You say it was a gross misrepresentation. Senator Durbin has been very clear. Senator Graham has told others that the reports were basically accurate. Are you saying the president did not use the word that has been so widely reported?
I'm telling you he did not use that word, George, and I'm telling you it's a gross misrepresentation. How many times do you want me to say that?
My question to him is, okay, what did he say? What was his representation? Because he didn't go any farther than that. He didn't explain it. No, well, he didn't say it. It was a gross misrepresentation. Now, if you talked to him the day before, it wasn't that he didn't say it. It was that, I don't recall him saying that. And that's what Tom Cotton has said. So Tom Cotton, who is, I hate guys like Tom Cotton. Because Tom Cotton is where he is today because he positions himself as being strong on national defense by being essentially a warmonger. I just don't like it. Like, I don't mind going to war. I'm no peacenik. You know, I'll slit some throats. That doesn't bother me any. What bothers me is someone who stands up and who's willing to send your boy or your daughter over into harm's way at the drop of a hat for any reason that they can come up with, just so that they can look like they're tough on defense. Tom Cotton's like, he's the next Lindsey Graham. He's the next John McCain. He's the guy who's never seen a war he didn't like. And he's probably making a ton of money through donation dollars by standing and being this pro-defense kind of guy. And it's all a charade. He was in the military. Now he gets out. Now he's tough on defense. So he wants to send everybody off to fight and die. And I only want to do that. Here's the thing. If I'm in Congress and I know I got the responsibility of providing for the defense of this nation, and I know someday I might have to ask you to send your son or your daughter to die, I treat that with a level of seriousness that you cannot possibly imagine. Those are not only sons and daughters, they are fathers and husbands and wives. And those people are willing to stand up and say, I will go if you need me to go. I will go and defend liberty. I will defend freedom. We should only ask them to do that when it is absolutely necessary for the survival of that liberty. Anything short of that, we need to tread very, very lightly. Guys like Tom Cotton don't believe that. Guys like Tom Cotton are more than happy to send your son or daughter all over the world to fight every godforsaken war you can come up with, all for the sake of national security. What Tom Cotton really is a water carrier for the president and for the Republican Party. Here's what he said about the president's comments.
I didn't hear that word either. I certainly didn't hear what Senator Durbin has said repeatedly.
So you're saying in that room you didn't hear any of this sort of lumping everybody together. Is that what you're saying?
I did not hear derogatory comments about individuals or persons. No.
Okay. So this sentiment is totally phony as well, that is attributed to him.
Yes.
So individuals or persons. You see how he makes that very clear distinction? He didn't say groups. That's actually who the president attacked. He attacked Haitians. He attacked people from blankety-blank countries, right? But that's Tom Cotton threaded the needle there. Beautiful, beautiful work there as a politician, Tom. Well done. I didn't hear him say that about individuals. What about the groups? Well, yeah, so of course he said that. The only other Jeff Flake came out and he said something. Jeff Flake is not running for re-election. He don't give a you-know-what. And so he is out there talking a little bit about what happened behind the scenes. And what he's going to tell you is, well, you know what? We knew this had been said before the press found out about it. Here's what he said.
All I can say is I was in a meeting directly afterwards where those who had presented to the president our proposal spoke about the meeting, and they said those words were used before those words went public. So that's all I can tell you is I heard that account before the account even went public.
So it's pretty, I mean, look, it's pretty clear from what you've read and what people have said. I mean, Lindsey Graham is out. Lindsey Graham is threading the needle too. He's not outright saying the president said it, but he's not denying it either. Basically, he doesn't want to fight with the president. He's trying to get a deal done. Lindsey Graham, I think at his core, is a real coward, even though he loves to talk about national defense and he loves to talk about his time overseas when he was sitting on ISAF, watching the grass grow. ISAF's a military base in Afghanistan, right in Kabul. That is that basically is where pogues go. Pogue is a person other than grunt in the Marine Corps. It's somebody who is not engaged in combat, and somewhere they go to stare at fences. ISAF stands for I stare at fences. Actually, I think it stands for international. I don't know, something, some sort of international base. And I'll tell you the one story of Lindsey Graham. I protected Lindsey Graham when I was downrange in Afghanistan. I was on the ambassador's detail. I ran the counter assault team for the U.S. ambassador's detail in Afghanistan for a couple of years. And while I was there, everybody who came through, all the politicians who came through, I ran all their protections. So I ran Obama and John McCain and Lindsey Graham. I'm not trying to name drop, just telling you pretty much left and right, Republican, Democrat, didn't really matter. If they came through, my job was to provide security for them and to make sure that they could get around in the country without getting blowed up. So Lindsey Graham came in and ended up doing his time, going around, seeing some bases, shaking some hands, pretending, like he cared. And then he's still in the military, right? He's trying to do his 20. And so he's a lawyer or something in the Air Force. And so he decided to hold over. John McCain was flying back, but Lindsey Graham was holding over and apparently spent the next 2 weeks of his 2-week time that he had to spend in the military at ISAF. And so I don't have any respect for people like that. I got a lot of respect for a guy who's been in it, who's been in a war, who's seen his brothers die, and who says this was worth it, this was important, we had to fight this in order to preserve our freedoms. And I also got a lot of respect for a guy who comes back and says this was absolutely not worth it. I don't know what my buddies died for. I don't know what I got shot out for. I don't know why I lost this leg. I don't know why I lost this hand. I'm demoralized. And I look at the drug addiction and the mental stress, and as well as the physical stress that's come down on these guys who are over there fighting these wars. And I say, for what? For what? When was America's liberty ever threatened? Yes, we were attacked on September 11th, but liberty wasn't ever a threat. I'm not going to object to going to Afghanistan and trying to find the people who and find the people who committed the atrocity. But the more you look at it, the more you see, it really probably didn't come from Afghanistan, it probably came from Saudi Arabia. And so I look at these things and I say, why are we doing it? And even if it was okay in the beginning, why are we doing it now? Why do we continue to do it? What does winning look like? When will we see a peace? And the truth is, there is no peace. So here's what I want you to understand. We've been bouncing around a little bit today as I've been ad-libbing through the show. This is what I want you to take away. First of all, DACA is absolutely not about the immigrants. Has nothing to do with that. It has to do with political positioning. The president removed the DACA status, gave these guys 6 months to try and jump through hoops to get a deal done that will give him his wall and will give him some other political points. On the other side are Democrats who are staring at the potential for a shutdown of the government and who are using that as leverage to get what they want. This has nothing to do with protecting the kids in DACA. That's what it should be about. It should be about saying this is stupid. Why are we doing this? Why on earth would anybody ever think about sending one of these kids home? When I say home, back to their country of origin. This is their home. They're as much a citizen as anybody else. They just didn't have the opportunity to be born here. Why would anybody ever send these guys away? And the truth is, nobody wants to. But they see them as a political pawn that can be exploited. And the Republicans are using, the president is using them. The Democrats are using them and the shutdown to try and get what they want. And you've got the majority of people in Washington carrying water for one political party or the other. And if you listen to talk radio, if you listen to the news, every single one of them, left or right, is positioning themselves to defend their party. And I got to tell you guys, I'm tired of people who defend party. Tired of it. I cannot stand those people. Do what's right. Do what is moral. Do what is just. Do what ensures the most amount of opportunity for the most amount of people. And that is not what we've been doing. Now, question. So what do we do about the people who are here? What do we do about the illegal immigration problem? Number one, you got to fix your immigration system. I don't even know if it's possible. It's possible if people wanted to do it. Make it easy for people who want to come here and work to work. Look, if it drives down the wages and ultimately drives down prices, okay. That's what a free market does. You got to increase your skill level. You got to find a different gig. If someone's willing to work for less, then they're going to work. They get the job. Same quality work or higher quality work in some cases at a cheaper price. That's what we want. Now, for the people who are here, remember, America is culpable in them being here. We created this crisis by not doing the things that we were supposed to be doing as a government from the jump. So if you've got a guy here who's working hard, who's not a drain on the system, if you've got kids here who were brought here as children, just give them status. Just say, hey, come in, tell us who you are, we'll give you the card, we'll take care of you, that way you can go on about your business, we'll make sure you're paying your taxes like everybody else, and make sure you're doing everything, you're above board, and just give them status. There are people literally been waiting for years to be able to get that status, who've been waiting for their permanent residency, who've been waiting for their green card now that they came to this country illegally. Just give it to them. Let them work. Let them live. Let them produce. Let them contribute. God, it is beyond frustrating to think about what our government has done and the way that they use immigrants the way the Arab nation uses Palestinians. You notice that? I mean, there's no Arab country is ever offering to bring Palestinians in, assimilate them. No, nobody wants them. They just want to continue to use them as this pawn against Israel, support the war, the back and forth. That's the way our government treats immigrants. The vast majority of them are coming here who are trying to create a better life for themselves. And you and I both know if we were in the same position, we'd be doing the same thing. I remember being in Afghanistan and looking at just the absolute destitution of the people there and thinking to myself, if I lived here, I'd pack a knapsack and I'd walk across the desert. I'd walk across the mountains because it's better to die trying to cross the mountains than to live an existence in this place. But I have the benefit of being an American. I have the benefit of seeing what life can be when you have opportunity. And they don't have that. And now you've got all of these people from Mexico who have no opportunity, no chance to ever make anything out of themselves, no chance for their children to ever make anything out of themselves. And they're saying, I got one shot, I can cross that border. And they save and they scrimp and they try and cross so that they can try and make a living and provide a better life for their families. I mean, how do you fault a guy for that? How do you say to him, you broke the law? Screw the law. Just because something is against the law, just because something is legal doesn't make it moral. Just because it's illegal doesn't make it wrong. Most of these people who came here illegally would have gladly come here legally if they just had an easy way to do it. Many of them waited years to try and come here legally, and when they finally gave up, they said, well, my last hope is to get a coyote and have him, trek me across the border. That's the way a lot of these guys live. So anyway, I don't have any respect for the president. I don't have any respect for his comments. I don't have any respect for guys like Tom Cotton or Perdue who aren't willing to stand up and say what actually happened. And I don't have any respect for somebody who tries to hold a kid in the crossfire of a political debate and to use them as a pawn to try and score political points. I got no respect for anybody who does that. I don't want anybody in Washington. Nobody in Washington is getting my vote who does that. This is a real simple fix. The DACA kids stay. In fact, if you got a job and you are working and contributing to this country and you came here illegally, just show up. We'll make sure you can work. You can come out of the quote unquote, come out of the shadows. But the president's comments are insulting. They are borderline, if not actually racist, depending on on what you believe about the president. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So anyway, let me close out the show by talking about this El Cajon Park. So El Cajon police officers arrested about a dozen people for feeding the homeless at a city park Sunday afternoon. The event was organized by a group called Break the Ban, which formed after the El Cajon, I think that's how you say it. City Council unanimously passed an emergency ordinance prohibiting the distribution of food on any city-owned property. So what you need to understand about this first and foremost is that this was a protest. This wasn't a group that came out because they were trying to give food. They were giving food and toiletries away, but their objective was to get arrested. Their objective was to create a scene because they wanted to raise awareness for how ridiculous this was. So city officials said the ordinance was a way to protect the public from hepatitis A, but critics have called it a punitive measure that dehumanizes and criminalizes the homeless. Well, it doesn't criminalize the homeless, or dehumanize the homeless. That's silly. What it is government protecting you from yourself. Government saying you're not capable of deciding whether or not you want to go and feed the homeless and potentially pick up a disease. When in fact, anybody who works with the homeless on a regular basis or anybody who comes to do that is going to be well aware of the potential problems that exist with anyone who lives on the street, potential drug addicts, people with mental problems or alcohol addiction. There's all kinds of things associated with that. So Mark Lane, one of the event organizers, said about 12 to 15 people were passing out food and toiletries to the homeless at Wells Park on East Madison Avenue when police arrived. According to the video shared on Facebook, a police officer said this park is part of city property and you aren't allowed to food share. If you guys continue to food share, then you guys are subject to arrest, all right? And I got to make a comment about the police here. Now, I don't dislike cops. I'm not a cop hater, but I do have a problem with some of the things that cops do. And this is one of them. There is such a thing as officer discretion. And there is at some point a time when you have to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to be the SS. I'm not going to be the Gestapo. I'm not going to be a yes man for you. If you want somebody to go and arrest people for feeding the homeless, you're going to have to get somebody else because I won't do it. I don't care what the law is. I have officer discretion. You can order me to do it. I won't do it. I will accept the penalty, the consequences of refusing to go and arrest people who are feeding the homeless. Now, I understand that guy's got a family. He's got more concerns than he's got bills he's got to pay. He can't afford to lose his job. I get that. But at some point, principle has to stand. You have to be willing to stand up and do what's right. Because if we all just start following the government, if we all just do what we're told, I mean, that's what happened in World War II Germany. Everybody just went along to get along. And then before you knew it, it was go along or you're going to go to prison. And I don't want to see that in America. We as individuals have responsibility to our neighbor. If anyone is responsible for feeding the poor, it is you and I, not the government. Now, if I believe that the best way for you to invest your money, the best way for you to spend your money, the best way for you to donate your money is feeding the homeless, then I have the right, if not the moral obligation, to try and convince you to give as much as possible. But I don't have a right to take it from you. I don't have a right to go to your house and say, you owe, and therefore I'm going to take what I think you owe and I'm going to distribute it as I see fit. That's what government does. If your cause is true, if your cause is right, if your cause truly does create value, then people will give to your cause. And if it is not, then you won't get any money. And the money will flow to those places where it is most needed. This is the way a free market works, and it works the same with charity as it does with everything else. And so what it seems like here is that the government, in its infinite wisdom to protect you from yourself, created a law that not only prevents you from doing what is your obligation as an American, because they're the first people, these are the first people who will argue that you have to give money to the homeless, that you have to provide for these people. They're the first ones who'll do that. They just want you to do it through them rather than doing it on your own. Because, you know, you're not capable of doing it on your own. You don't know how to do it. Only we can feed the homeless. Foolish. And so now the government comes out, protects its monopoly by not allowing you to do what it is your obligation as a human being to do. You should be outraged about this. I mean, this is California, for Pete's sake. You know you can take... I've been here back and forth in and out of LA for the last year because I've been shooting this TV show. You know they let dogs go anywhere here. Anywhere you want them to go. They're in every restaurant. They're in every coffee shop. They're in every store. They just walk around. I love it. I think it's great. I love at least seeing the dogs around. Going to the coffee shop, cool little dog comes in. You know, go to the restaurant. There's some dog laying there on the patio out front or in the restaurant itself on the floor. I love it. It's cool. It's a very laid back vibe. But how on earth, all these dogs running around, and this is completely acceptable to have dogs running through restaurants and not acceptable to go out to a park and hand a meal to a homeless person? Where's the logic in that? It makes no sense. And what it is, at the end of the day, is just somebody who thinks they know better how to run your life than you. At the end of the day, it's just government getting in the way of you pursuing your own self-interest and your own wants and desires for no reason other than to protect you from yourself. And that's sad. So anyway, guys, that's gonna make it for the show today. I appreciate you guys bearing with me through this first show. I had a couple of things I didn't get to. The great market melt-up. Somebody asked me to talk about that. And then we didn't talk about the doomsday panic in Hawaii, but I figured everybody kind of heard about that. Unless you were in Hawaii, I mean, who really cares? It was just a government screw up. That after it's a story you'll laugh about later. You just weren't laughing about it when they said that the missile was coming. And so I'll be back here tomorrow. We'll do this all over again, and over the course of the next 3 or 4 or 5 days, I'll get my feet wet. I got a guy who may be starting with me next week, maybe acting as a somewhat of a helper to me. So we're going to be putting a team together here now that I'm boots on the ground in Los Angeles and making this thing happen. So I just want to tell you again how much I appreciate everything you're doing. Make sure you go and sign up to attend the Libertarian Convention in San Diego here in California. Be doing a meetup there. It'll be great. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Until then, be safe, be good. I'll talk to you soon.